You don't have to have done this job before.
Charlotte Mostaed, CMO of Health-Ade.
The worst advice, kind of along the lines of why I didn't get a summer internship, is that you have to have done the job in order to get the job. And that's kind of one of those things where I just don't believe it's true. I think people show potential in the way that they think. So when I talk to people who I want to join my team, I'm really looking for how do they think and approach problems, and are they a hard worker and an avid learner? You don't have to have done this job before.
So before we get in today, got to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Open Fortune. Open Fortune took the traditional and humble fortune cookie, flipped it on its head, and added a twist with an advertisement on the back. With people seeing about 4,000 to 6,000 ads daily, these break through the noise and burn your brand into their memories, reaching 99% of zip codes and reaching people where they feast. So thank you, Open Fortune, for making today possible. So let's get into it. Hey everybody, and welcome back to How the Fuck Did You Get That Job, the show where we dive into the whirlwinds and captivating career paths, and yes, where your ever curious host can't resist in jumping in with my 2 cents. In the spotlight today, we have Charlotte Mostaed. A proud UC Berkeley graduate, Charlotte embarked on her academic journey with a bachelor's in international development. Not to rest on her laurels, she then ventured to the revered Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business, walking away with a coveted master's in business administration. The corporate world soon beckoned, and Charlotte answered the call at Procter & Gamble, mastering the art of brand management, starting as an assistant brand manager and rising the ranks to brand manager. Her zest for marketing took her next to Palm, where as director of marketing, she orchestrated strategies for the beloved beverage brand. Now, she's stirring things up as the CMO of Health-Ade, pioneering the way in the kombucha landscape. So, Charlotte, how the fuck did you get that job?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's awesome to be here, and I'm excited to tell you all about it.
Yeah, so bring me back to your college decision process, right?
Yeah.
We'll get to Health-Ade and where you are today, but that's where I like to start due to the fact that it's one of the first, real decisions that you make as a teenager.
Yeah. When I was thinking about undergrad, I wanted to just go to the best possible school. I had no idea what my major was going to be. Honestly, I was like, I just want to go where I know that whatever I do study, it's going to be the highest quality. And I was a California resident. Berkeley was always my dream school. And so to get into Cal was just a dream come true.
And what did you want to be when you grew up? When
I had no idea. That was the problem. So all of my aptitude tests in school and high school, they're like, you can do anything. And I'm like, cool, because I want to do everything. And I had no idea what that would look like. So I didn't have parents that were in the corporate world. My mom had done amazing in her career. She was a city clerk. I wasn't sure that was going to be the job for me, but I did love city administration, things like that. My dad is a contractor, general contractor. I knew that wasn't going to be my path. But overall, I kind of got a sense that I'm not going to be in the medical field, and that was really it. That was the narrowing that I had. So going into undergrad, the first year was a true year of exploration, and I literally looked at the course guide, and I saw a course called Development Studies.
What is Development Studies?
Well, I found out what it was because at first I thought it might be child development. And I was like, oh, I love kids. That's awesome. And then I got there and it was about the third world, and it was about developing countries. And to me, it felt like the B track of history that you don't get taught in school. Sure. And so I fell in love with that class. It was my first semester. And I had taken, just sociology, just a general other set of courses. I had a lot of prereqs already done in high school. And so taking development studies opened my mind to, wow, there is a lot that I could do, learning about the third world and international relations and global economies and things like that. So that became my major.
Very cool. And so how did you bring that? It's funny, I interview a lot of marketers, business owners, entrepreneurs, all that good stuff. And it's very rare that their major is business, right? At least in college. And that's because nobody knows actually what they want to do at 18. Whenever I ask that question, it's never actually, there was one person, shout out Joel Myers, the founder of AccuWeather. He said at 3, he knew he was going to be a weatherman when they didn't exist. Oh my God. Everybody else, that isn't true. But, what did you bring in from that major and learn that you now apply to your current role and roles along the way in marketing?
I think the one common thread and through line is that I take a very multidisciplinary approach. So that's what development studies was. I loved the major because you didn't just take one sort of theme or course set. Sure. You took economics, statistics, sociology, ethnic studies. I specialized in Latin America. I had almost a French minor because that was just a passion area of mine. And so this ability to do a very multidisciplinary major really, really spoke to me. And I would say that that's how I've now approached marketing and my brand of marketing, which is very general management focused. I've never just been a creative type or an analytic type or a business strategy type. I do it all in every role that I've had.
What would you say that to people who say, a jack of all trades is seldom good at none?
I would say that marketing's for you. Of course, there is an opportunity for specialists to thrive, right? And we need them in this world. I have found my superpower is being good enough at many things to be a little bit dangerous. So I can dig into the category development data and ask you and look for the drivers of why the business is growing. I can also sit at the table with the head of the creative and say, this isn't resonating because of this particular phrasing or copy direction or art direction. And then I can also kind of step back and see how all of those pieces fit together and ladder up to our overall strategy for the company, for the brand. So I do think there's a place for someone who wants to get well-versed in enough things that you know exactly what the CFO is talking about, but you're by no means an accountant.
Sure. And how did you figure out if you were when you were good at marketing, or was there a moment that stands out?
Well, so here's the thing. I studied international development. I studied abroad my third year in France, not in a developing nation.
Where in France?
In Toulouse.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
It was amazing. And then when I came back, I was looking for a job in international development work, but I wanted to stay stateside. I wanted to be in California doing international development, which doesn't exist, not very broadly anyway. So I had been working over the summers at a children's museum, and they had kind of put me on whatever job was available at the time. When I then graduated undergrad, they said, hey, our curator is going to be leaving. Do you want this role if you kind of train with her for a little while? I'm like, okay, curator, I'm 22 and you want me to be the number 2 person at this museum? It was a small museum, but still a lot of responsibility. And they said, yeah, we think you can do it, which was amazing. Shout out to Kim Albarian for giving me that opportunity at a very young age. And that's when I realized I loved turning an idea into an experience and into reality. As I was going through, being a museum curator, I really was like, what's the next step? Because I was looking at, the nonprofit world and was realizing that I wasn't going to be able to make a life for my family and kind of build the wealth that I would need to build, to be honest. And so I had heard some people talking about MBAs, and not having known anyone really that had had an MBA, I was like, I wonder if that's the right path for me. I considered that alongside an MPA, a Master's of Public Administration, thinking maybe I would want to be a city manager of some sorts. It's like, well, the MBA will give me the most options. I could always come into the city world at some other point. So go to business school, and that's where I realized marketing was a great fit. But again, approached it similarly to undergrad. I really didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. So I took a smorgasbord of classes the first year. And then it was in a marketing class that I was like, whoa, this is a perfect fit for my brain.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just spoke to our last guest, who is the VP of Marketing of NYCFC over here, and she was talking about MBAs and is it worth it, is it not worth it? How would you answer that question back then and also today?
I think it's something to really think about carefully, right? It's expensive, and it is a big chunk of your time in your life. For me, it was absolutely crucial. I needed to career switch. I was in a nonprofit public children's museum without a business undergrad. So I truly needed what an MBA was going to give me in terms of a really good business foundation, as well as just that credential on my resume to show future employers that I could hack it in their world. And so for me, it was a really great choice. I would say that for someone who has maybe a business undergrad, is already in the career path that they want. So say they're starting out as a junior marketer somewhere and they want to continue into marketing and go up the ranks. A lot of companies are leaning in on those kind of hires if you know your stuff and you can work really hard. And for those kind of people, it may not be the right cost benefit analysis.
Or like a career pivot person. Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. When you're moving over to P&G, what is that? Why is that the right opportunity for you?
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating because I had such a hard time getting an internship in business school. I wanted to stay local to DC, and it was really tough to find a summer internship that was going to take a chance on someone like me, a museum curator, in my background after 1 year of business school. And then it got to full-time, and I had a few options, which was amazing. And so I had a few marketing options, a few consulting options, and offers on the table. But P&G was the one that was just speaking to my heart. It was the best-in-class marketing CPG opportunity that is really out there. And I knew that I wanted to get that really fundamental training in CPG marketing, and that would be kind of the platform and foundation for the rest of my career.
I've heard from a lot of P&G alum that I've had on the show that they do a great job training you, and it kind of is like a real life MBA. Would you agree with that? And what did you take away from that experience?
Well, the thing is, it's not training like you think it is. So what's funny is I got there and I'm like, okay, like where's my manual on how to be a marketer? And it's not that. So, and then I was there for 5 years and you realize it's not that they're going to tell you exactly how to do your job, but what they're going to do is they have such a wonderful emphasis on coaching, as well as throughout your time there, you're going to be exposed to the cutting edge ideas and first and foremost, brightest and best practices in marketing. So those templates, the processes, all of those things, you don't realize that you're being trained. But then when you go to a smaller company or a company that's building up their marketing function, you're like, oh, we used to do this thing at P&G that I think we could use here in a smaller way and in a way that's, bespoke for where we're at. So you don't realize that it's training because it's not like someone's training you exactly how to do your job, but you have amazing coaches because the brand managers are there by your side in your first year teaching you every single thing.
What do you think there's one lesson that you took from P&G into what you're doing today?
Resourcefulness. I mean, that is one of the biggest things that I look for in a marketer on my team, as well as what I've had to do in my career, and at P&G especially. I mean, at P&G, I had 3 to 4 different roles. And when my first role was global Tampax, and the task was figure out if we should launch Tampax Pearl in Latin America. I'm like, okay, well, have we done this before? No. Do we have any data? No. And so it was really like, go ask around for whatever you can and figure out if we can put together a story or a strategy for why this might or might not make sense. And so it really is about pulling those pieces together. And in no job has anyone had the answer sitting there for me. So it's about being resourceful with the scraps of data you have or how you could get them, as well as pulling from other categories, benchmarks, whatever, to put the strategy and the story together and make your case.
Very cool. Very cool. And so you turned to the beverage space with POM.
Yeah.
What made that the right decision for you?
I wasn't necessarily looking. So I was at P&G. I was super happy. I knew eventually I wanted to get back to Southern California, and I wanted to go somewhere that was smaller, where I could see a lot more pieces of how everything came together. At P&G, it's this wonderful organization and just you have amazing connections, but it is a huge company. And for me, I've wanted to get closer and closer to all of the action because it just satisfies my brain to see how all of the pieces go together. And so I was open to kind of taking the opportunities that came, and they reached out to me from POM Wonderful and said, we have this opportunity. Does it sound like something you'd want to do? The other component for me was I have to feel really personally passionate about any product I'm going to market. So there were a lot of things that never made that cut. But Palm Wonderful is a really healthy beverage. It's full of antioxidants, has an amazing origin story. It's very unique and differentiated. And so for me, it really spoke to me to work on that.
Very cool. Talk to me about, did Palm already have that bottle shape that you had?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the iconic shape that they made.
Yeah, that's the first thing that pops to my head.
Yeah, they launched in 2002 with that bottle shape, and it was originally in glass. And famously, Linda Resnick was, she drew it on the wall and with her lead designer, and she was told this cannot happen and this is impossible and this is the dumbest decision ever. But she is very, very smart and knows what she's doing and really pushed for it. And it's become the iconic asset that the brand is very well known for. What
was Palm looking to have you do, and what were the pain points, and why were you so passionate about it?
It was at a really interesting time at the company. So we were doing really well as a brand, but there had been some launches and SKU extensions and sub brands that had been launched that weren't doing very well. So the task was, how do we still grow, but with the core business? And that's hard, right? The brand hadn't been, there wasn't innovation that we're going to launch to get more and more sales on the shelf. It's really about selling the core business. And that was a very different pivot for me than at P&G, because at P&G, innovation is the lifeblood. You're always fixing or tweaking something with the product. You're launching new items. You're launching a new, geographies. Here it was, you don't have anything new, but you need to sell the shit out of it. So how do you do that?
That's a fun task.
It is. And it really makes you come down to your brand fundamentals and get to know the consumer and say, why are they drinking this? And what can we, how can we tell the story in a new and different way that still gets people excited, and also train our salespeople to sell the base business? Because it's harder to do than to sell new items. Everyone wants something new. So we made a lot of inroads in how do we sell American Ninja Warrior as a partnership, and how do we talk about that as being something that's going to grow sales and that the retailers need to get on board with it. We also created a really cool campaign about health awakenings, and we realized that people that fell in love with Palm were having a health awakening in their life where they were realizing they needed way more antioxidants than what they were already drinking. So those were some really fun projects that we worked on, and just on the base business, and continued, double-digit growth in a pretty stagnant category.
There you go. That's really, really impressive, especially just taking something that's old and you're making new, but don't change a thing about it.
Yeah, the juice is the same, right?
Yeah.
It's fresh squeezed pomegranate juice.
Yeah. With Health-Ade, right? Were you were already drinking Health-Ade?
I was a huge fan. Yes, I was telling you earlier, I needed to subsidize my habit.
Yeah.
And so I saw the job opening, and I was just such a huge fan of the brand. I loved everything about it. I loved this.
How long ago were you starting to drink kombucha? Because I feel like it's taken definitely quite the...
Yeah. So I started to drink about 10 years ago.
OG.
Yeah, it was OG. Health-Ade started in 2012. So I really was I was drinking it a year or two into them being in business. But I had been a giant Diet Coke addict.
Ooh.
So it's
that stuff is addicting.
Yeah, it's addicting. And that was my childhood and through college and afterwards. And then I had this moment where I kind of had my own health awakening, to continue that on. And I decided to cut out all the fake stuff in my life. So no fake butter, no fake drinks, just real food only. And that's partly...
How do you feel?
I feel amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's crazy how that happens.
I know. It's so weird. Well, it's so crazy because I'm am I going to eat real butter? What? And nothing changed on the outside.
Sure.
I didn't gain weight by eating real butter. But I felt so good. Just overall energy-wise, I stopped having headaches. I don't know the science behind it, so don't quote me on anything. But kombucha became my substitute for Diet Coke and for that sweet, bubbly crackle in the afternoon. And And I've never looked back. So I've been hardcore drinker for 10 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. And it definitely makes you a great brand fit, right, to spread the message. I'm curious because I feel like a lot of, you hire a new CMO, VP of marketing, and a lot of those pain points, maybe like we need more people, X, Y, and Z, right? We need more brand awareness. I feel like Health-Ade was everywhere, right? Or is everywhere, like everywhere I turn.
Good.
So what, at least in New York. But, why did they bring you on, and what were they looking for you to solve?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And it is everywhere in New York. However, when I joined in 2020, it was really at this moment where the kombucha category had been really growing for the previous 7 years. So had been a rocket ship, and Health-Ade had been growing. And then all of a sudden, a lot of other functional beverages started popping up. And the kombucha category had kind of maxed out on its space in the store. And now the growth wasn't coming just like manna from heaven, right? And so they were looking at a marketer that could come in and say, how do we really elevate and level up how we're doing marketing in a way that's different and now the right fit for where we are in the company's trajectory. So previously the company had started with a lot of field marketing, a lot of sampling, influencer stuff, but they really had never used a paid media mix model to be able to get reach and awareness. So that was part of, I think, what got us all excited about me coming in. As I was, I had worked with a similar size budget or bigger, but I knew how to make a lot out of a marketing budget to get the eyeballs and to optimize the media mix so that you're not just getting cheap impressions, you're also getting those robust ones. And that was really what I was brought in to do, as well as do some internal professionalization.
Sure. And how did you go about familiarizing yourself with the brand and tone of voice and, really understand what their pain points are and before you start making your moves?
Yeah, well, I was so fortunate to be able to work with the founders. So I started with Dinah Trout as my boss, working alongside Vanessa Dew and Justin Trout. We got to work together for a year totally, and then even another year after that as Dinah and Vanessa shifted into new roles. So I truly understood exactly how they had been working, the ethos of the brand, what the mission meant to everyone, and what were the core essentials of how this product has been so successful. The interview process was also a way to get there, but that's a really interesting story.
Yeah,
because,
tell me.
So I didn't get the job. I went through, it felt like maybe 2 months of interviewing and 9 interviews. I talked to Dinah for 4 hours across the couple months. And, I wasn't in a hurry. I was opportunistically looking to move to this job. And I got a call from the recruiter, and she's like, Charlotte, I'm so sorry, but you didn't get this job. And I'm like, what? I was just shocked because I felt like all
signs were good.
All the signs were good. I really had started to feel connected.
Yeah.
I had started to understand exactly what I was going to go do once I started. I had met the team. I had met my colleagues. I had met with Dinah so much. And I was like, what's going on, Carolyn? And she's still there. And we talk about this all the time. And she's like, I think they want someone who has been in the executive seat before, things like that. And I said, okay, all right, I get it. However, I'm the right person for this job. So I went, that night I couldn't sleep at all. And I literally wrote out this email to tell them.
It's like the Jerry Maguire, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
Which one?
Jerry Maguire stays up all night and does it's like that.
I was sitting there awake, writing this email in my mind, why they're wrong. And I sent it to my mom the next morning, and I was like, I didn't get the job. Can I send this? And she goes, my mom is very skilled at all things diplomacy. And she's like, everywhere where you put the word you, change that to the company or the group so that it's not a personal attack. temper, which is always a good practice. And so I rewrote it with fresh eyes and I sent it through, and I didn't hear back for 2 days. And then I finally did. And the chief HR officer, Deb, who I love, and she just left, but she's been such a great friend and colleague. she called me and she goes, oh my gosh, that email cut through all of our issues like a hot knife through butter. You see everything. I was like, I know, I was listening. And she's like, okay, the team is willing for you to present your strategy and maybe you can have this job. And I'm like, all right, I got it.
That's so great.
So I put together this, I was like, but I'm going to Costa Rica next week and I can't. And she's like, that's the only time. Do you want it bad enough? I'm like, I will do this from Costa Rica. So I was literally on a dirt road. I got Wi-Fi in the car that we were, because my flight got messed up and all this stuff. And so from a dirt road in Costa Rica, I gave my presentation on my strategy, my approach for Health-Ade. And I got the job.
That's such a great story. That's one of my favorite stories that we told on this podcast.
You got to try it. You got to try for what you really want. And like maybe sometimes no isn't the final answer.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's so good. There's so many lessons in that. And so the Wi-Fi worked.
The Wi-Fi worked enough.
It was good enough.
It was enough. My camera wasn't working. I sent it ahead to the director that was going to be reporting to me. And so she had it and she was flipping through slides and my audio was working.
Okay. So it worked.
And like kudos to.
And how was Costa Rica? Was it fun?
Costa Rica was amazing. Then I had the best vacation. But Dinah and Vanessa, I think they also loved that I was still doing things on my own terms, because part of what they wanted was they wanted someone that was authentically themselves, that spoke up and didn't, that could hold their own. And so I think in a way they appreciated that, hey, I'm still going to go on my vacation that I've been planning, but this is important to me. And so here's how it's going to work on my terms. And so
you did it your way.
Yeah, in a way it was like an extra culture interview to make sure that I had the Health-Ade grit.
There you go.
Within me.
That is awesome. That is so cool. We've spoken a lot about your career. Tell me a little something about yourself that you're proud of out of the career and more into the personal life.
Yeah, I mean, I try to live a really well-balanced life. So I tell this to my team, and I've always tried to keep this true about myself, but I don't work crazy hours. Like, I stop at 5. I have 2 little kids. I'm a single mom. I literally can't work after 5. They come home, they need me. They're 3 and 6 years old. And it's important to me to be there for them. So I try to really always seek that balance. I try to keep up with my health and wellness. Like, if I don't feel good, I'm not going to be good for anyone else. And so for me, it's been about how do I work really smart? I know it's like so trite, but like smarter, not harder. But a lot of that is reapplying and doing things that I've done before, or getting really resourceful and knowing where everything is so that I can do things super fast.
Sure.
And getting good at the things you need to be good at, so that I can do them quickly and then have a balanced life. But yeah, I love the outdoors. I have 2 girls. I just finished my first triathlon. So
I'm a triathlete too.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah, which one did you do?
I did the Malibu triathlon.
Nice.
It still feels weird to call myself a triathlete.
You are a triathlete.
But
it's an affirmation.
Okay.
I am a triathlete.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am a triathlete.
Yeah. Was it fun?
It was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was way more fun than I expected. I'd never really done a race.
They're great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
What's
really
your favorite
fun.
leg?
Swimming.
Yeah, swimming is.
Yeah.
It's
you
great.
too?
Yeah. Swimming or biking.
Yeah. The run was the longest run of my life, but it was only 4 miles.
Yeah. It was a sprint, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then they had to change it. There was this whole thing with an endangered species that had taken root on the course, and so they changed the bike from 17 miles to 10 miles.
Okay.
So now I got to go do another one so I can do the full sprint distance.
I would do one in California. I did the half Ironman in Switzerland this summer. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I've done a couple Olympic ones like around here, but it's fun. I'm not a great runner, but the swimming and biking is the
My partner does half Ironmans, and I'm so in awe of him. But yeah,
I
don't think I'm going to be there just for the running aspect. There's no way.
Yeah. There's a lot of great shirts, by the way, that are like my husband or my partner is a complete idiot and I'm here supporting them or something like that I've seen at these Ironman. But anyway, that's awesome that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Sweet. Let's get into the quick question round.
Okay.
And I will pull this up. Before we get into it, we're going to crack one of these open. Shout out to Open Fortune for making this special episode possible.
I'm excited.
All right, let's see if it has to do with what we just spoke about.
Let's hope not.
What does yours say?
Ooh. Love yourself first and everything else will fall into place.
I think so. I think that's great.
I think that's true.
And whose brand?
Airy. I want it. Yeah.
You will take a trip to a warmer climate. There you go. Breeze Airways.
I love it.
Yeah. They kind of both are around Costa Rica.
Yeah.
A little bit, right?
Yeah. I think you got to go to Costa Rica.
Yeah. Costa Rica's great. We'll go back. Do you have a fortune cookie? What do you usually do with your fortune cookie when you get it?
If they're good, I save it. I like in high school, I feel like I saved one forever.
What did it say?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea. It was a very long time ago.
Okay. What was the ethos?
It was probably something that was actually kind of like a prediction of like it will all happen in due time or something like that.
Good one.
Yeah.
Sweet.
But I think this is that's along the same line. I might save this one.
Yeah. Go keep it. It's all yours. Okay, let's go into the quick question round. Person you'd most want to sit down to dinner with, dead or alive?
My grandpa. Yeah, he passed a couple years ago, and he's just such a funny character. He was like a big collector of things, an adventurer. He had horses and peacocks and like all sorts of things. And yep.
What, do you have a quote from him that you really like or no?
He would always say, "You betcha," or "How you doing?" And it was just his openness. I can just hear his booming voice now. Yeah.
Sounds endearing. Favorite city in the world?
Paris.
Is it okay to sleep with socks on?
No, definitely not.
I'm 0 for 5. I think it is. Favorite rom-com?
Oh my gosh. I was just talking about Sleepless in Seattle.
That's a good one.
It was so good. The dialogue, they don't have dialogue like that anymore.
No, mine's You've Got Mail, so along the same.
Yeah. I'm a total Tom Hanks fan.
Yeah, he's the best. Thanks. In 40 years, what will people be nostalgic for?
Ooh, I hope they're not nostalgic for the outdoors. I hope that's like still a part of
what
we do all the time.
I hope so. Favorite UCal Berkeley grad?
Oh my gosh. There's got to be like a Nobel Peace Prize winner that I'm not thinking about. Can I say like my friends?
Yeah.
Sandra Heydrich, who works with me.
Great.
She's like my partner in crime in marketing, and we were there at the same time. We didn't even know each other.
There you go. That's awesome. One thing people don't understand about working in the kombucha business is?
We're not all granola hippies. Some of us are quite business minded, and it's not just for the total health nut. It's you can drink it and enjoy it, and like a lot of people love it. So come on in.
That's a good
You
one.
be our friend.
Drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
What's the worst advice that you've ever been given?
You know, I think the worst advice was some kind of along the lines of why I didn't get a summer internship is that you have to do the job in order to have done the job in order to get the job. And that's kind of one of those things where I just don't believe it's true. I think people show potential in the way that they think. So when I talk to people who I want to join my team, I'm really looking for how do they think and approach problems, and are they a hard worker and an avid learner? You don't have to have done this job before.
That's a good one. In one sentence, how do you sum up the internet?
The Wild West.
The Wild West, that's a good one. Who's somebody you think should hop on this podcast?
Ooh, let's see. Oh my gosh.
Talk to me.
My brain is like faltering. I have
all good.
No idea. Let's say there's got to be another brand marketer that I'm like, oh, you should definitely talk to this person.
I'll be waiting for your call.
Okay.
And in 10 years, where can we catch you?
I hope to be like not working 9 to 5 every single day, but then just kind of getting into consulting and board advising and speaking and kind of those things where I can teach and mentor. Although, like, let's be real, I could definitely just be a CEO and probably love it.
Yeah.
So one of those two things.
Either is in your future.
Yeah, I think so.
We'll see. Well, thank you, Charlotte. That was wonderful.
Thank you so much, David. It's been great.